everybody doing tonight, today, tomorrow? Um, this is All Hell LA. I repeat, All Hell LA. Not the hell that come from the sky, but the one wearing the crown with his head up high. And people, I'm coming at y'all with some information I came across on the Foreign Assistance Government website. The foundational Black Americans, the Freedmen, the Aboriginal American Indians. There seemed to be a pushback on reparations. There is a pushback, not seems, there is, no doubt. People are always asking where is this money going to come from? Why we gotta pay for it? We weren't here. My response to that is there's a lot of people that immigrated into Germany and they are still being taxed, paying tribute to Israel, to the Jews for what took place when they weren't in that country. Same here in the United States. Our taxes are collected and goes towards the red Native American tribes, and no one took part in that's living today. However, at the same time, the red Native Americans were impacted in the 13 colonies that turned into the United States. The same Black Americans with lineages to the Freedmen were impacted as well. Simultaneously, at the same time. But there was no compensation put forth to make the Black Americans with Freedmen lineages whole. There's always a pushback, there's always a narrative, there's always an angle, there's always a kicking of the can down the curb. And where I differentiate from a lot of people a little bit, I know some of y'all gonna kill me, some of y'all gonna feel me, but reparations to me should start after slavery. Like in 1865, when we came out of slavery and were classified as citizens, and I know a lot of people feel a type of way about that, but I'm not going to dive into that. But hey, slavery was a legal institution in the United States, and I feel that we should start in 1865 when we got our rights, and we could kind of start it with Devil's Punch Bowl in Natchez, Mississippi, when hundreds of thousands of newly free men were locked in concentration camps, and they perished due to smallpox infested blankets that the Union soldiers, I repeat, the Union soldiers threw over the fences to get the people sick on purpose, and they threw them shovels and told them to bury the people there. And to this day, people don't eat the peaches that grow there. Billie Holiday made a song called Strange Fruits, inspired by those events. And there were multiple concentration camps for the freedmen, but that's another story. But here today, we're going to talk about this information I came across on the Foreign Assistance Government website. As you can see to the left, under ad filters, $47 billion in disbursements, 17,000 activities, and those disbursements went to 210 countries / regions. Fiscal year 2020, and we're in disbursements. And I noticed we have a lot of people that look like us, but not like us. The new phrase from all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And so what I'm gonna do is zoom in I'm not gonna be too elongated, not gonna be too long. I'm just gonna do two countries, Ghana and Nigeria. Ghana and Nigeria. All right, all right. And is this Ghana? Yes, it is. Okay, as you can see, for the fiscal year 2020, COVID was really running rampant in 2020. Ghana received 200 million in disbursements from the United States. 200 million 2020. But when some states like Oregon made specific plans of action to financially compensate black businesses in Oregon, for some reason, it was lawsuits and pushback that started with the Hispanic woman out there. But right now, for the sake, we're talking about Ghana, 200 million, and the government, United States government, say they just can't do anything for foundational Black Americans specifically. I'm not just gonna do nothing just for Black Americans. Nah, people say that with their whole chest. All right, so here you go. Out that 200 million, 200 million disbursements to Ghana from the United States, 104 million for economic development, 46.81 million towards health, 26.19 million program support, 10.56 million towards education and social services, 6.618 million democracy, human rights, and governance, 3.796 million towards peace and security, 529.9K towards the environment, 197.2K towards the multi-sector, 13.43K towards humanitarian assistance. And let's see who's the managing agency that dispersed the funds. All right. 92.42 million from the U.S. Agency for International Development, 82.73 million from the Millennium Challenge Corporation. I'm gonna have to look into them. 13.26 million from the Department of Agriculture. 13.26 million from the Department of Agriculture, the same Department of Agriculture that ignores the foundation of Black American farmers in the United States. The people that finally got the government, a presidential administration, to acknowledge their pleas and compensate them, only for more lawsuits to be filed to hold up the disbursement of the money. But there wasn't anything filed or challenging the Department of Agriculture flying money out of the United States. I find that peculiar. 2.636 million from the Department of State, 2.141 million from the Peace Corps, 1.664 million from the Department of Health and Human Services. And we're wondering why we're paying for health care over here in the United States. And also with reparations, along with cash payments, yes, I do believe foundational Black Americans should receive free health care. Free health care. Yes, I believe that. And I also believe that, the retirement for foundational Black Americans should be like 50 years old. Really 50. Cause they said black men die off around 55, between 55 and 60. I'm not sure. 1.566 million from the Department of Defense. 1.067 million from the Department of Labor. Does the Department of Labor not realize that that money should be spent over here, helping businesses, helping to create businesses, to create employment over here? 892.6K in Trade and Development Agency, 369K African Development Foundation, and 1,000.116K from others. That's just in 2020. All right, let's go to 2021. All right, the United States disbursed 49 billion. All right, let's see what Ghana's looking like. All right, they receive 250 million. Okay, I'm just here looking 26.54 million from the Department of Agriculture, 108.5 million from the Millennium Challenge Corporation, 90.53 million from the U.S. Agency for International Development, 1.424 million from the Department of Labor, 1.392 Department of Health and Human Services, 692.6K from Trade and Development Agency, 304.8K from the African Development Foundation. Okay, but the African Development Foundation, I think we're going to have to look into that one day and see who are the members of the board and who are the participants, and see if they're running around as politicians in the United States, or see what they have going on. I think that'd be interesting. All right, so that's 250. All right, let's see 2022. Going back to Ghana. All right, it says 214 million dispersed. All right, let's see. 137 million from the U.S. Agency for International Development. We should look into that agency as well. I mentioned the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the Department of State. We know who they are. The Department of Defense, Department of Labor, the Peace Corps. All right. And the Department of Agriculture dropped them down to 116.7K. All right. All right, let's see what we're looking like in 2023 in Ghana. Yeah, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. All right, they received another 200 million. All right. U.S. Agency for International Development, the Department of State, 3 million from the Department of Labor. All right. Agriculture just gave them 139.6K. All right. The Department of Treasury, why are they giving them money? Interesting. All right, let's go to 2024. All right, another 220 million. Another 220 million. Okay, the Treasury, 374K. Department of Agriculture, 145K. 190 million from the U.S. Agency for International Development. 17.83 million from the Department of State. 3.675 million from the Peace Corps. 2.158 million Department of Labor. 1.567 million from the Department of Health and Human Services, 904K from the Millennium Challenge Corporation. All right, let's see if they got anything for 2025. All right, let's go. All right, another 79 million. All right, so I guess that got halted by the Orange Man, President Trump, when he got in office. All right, 79 million. So roughly over the course of four years, Ghana received $1,163,000,000. All right. Ghana's GDP for 2023 was 76 billion. And let's see how much money the United States gave Ghana in 2023. I know it was like 200 something. So, isn't that weird? 200 million, 76 billion. Yeah, 76 billion, 200 million, 76 billion to 200 million. Okay. So Ghana making things pop a little bit. Okay, all right, let's go back to 2020. Yeah, I'm going back to 2020 because that's under Biden. All right, now let's look at Nigeria. All right, in 2020, Nigeria received 870 billion. I'm sorry, 870 million. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to move a little faster. 920 million. They're almost at 2 billion. Almost at 2 billion. Another 970 million. Let's see what we're looking like in 2023. 1 billion on the head. All right, 2024. $880 million. All right, let's see if they got anything for 2025. 360. So in those 5 years, Nigeria received $5 billion. You could really say 4 years. Nigeria received $5 billion, and Ghana received $1.1 billion. So that's $6 billion with just those two countries. Now I'm a little interested right now. Let me see who else we could go to. Wow. So in 2020, Kenya got 703 million. Tanzania got 560 million. Yes, let's go to Somalia. But as you can see, like, this is a lot of money. Ethiopia got roughly 1 billion in 2020. Alright, we know Umar is from Somalia. Alright, so 713 in 2020 for Somalia. 764 for Somalia in 2021. 2022. 2022. 709. We'll make it 10. 710 for Somalia. 2023. 1.2 billion. Let's see what 2024 looking like. 960. Let's see. 960 million. And let's see if they got anything for 2025. 310 million. So that's total out to $4,657 for Somalia for roughly 4 years, roughly a little over 4 years. And then you add the $5 billion from Nigeria, and then you add another 1.2 billion from Ghana. That's $10 billion. And something interesting. July 21st, 2025, Ghana races to settle $3.6 million debt as scholarship students face eviction from United States University. Look like the University of Memphis, and it is. Ghana's government is facing mounting criticism following reports that nearly 200 Ghanaian students on scholarship at the University of Memphis in the United States may be displaced due to unpaid tuition fees totaling $3.6 million. Nearly 200 Ghanaian students at the University of Memphis may be displaced due to funding issues. The students enrolled in STEM and business programs risk losing campus accommodation by August 2025. Oh, August is almost here. The university issues August 9th eviction deadline. The 185 affected students who are beneficiaries of Ghana government scholarship program have been asked by the university to find alternative sources of funding or vacate their campus accommodation by the 9th of August 2025. The students are currently studying science, engineering, and business-related programs. Dr. Bill Hardgrave, president of the University of Memphis, confirmed the situation during an interview with Action News 5's Better Memphis show. The students are sponsored by the government from Ghana, which has not paid the students' tuition in some time. Man, it gotta be some time, like, to accumulate $3.6 million. I don't know how much tuition is at the University of Memphis, but it had to be some time, because usually if a college or university doesn't receive payment within around the first 2 to 3 weeks, some might extend you out up to 4 weeks, but they're dropping you from the class. So sometime, I believe that's longer than that. They probably stayed a little bit longer than that. Dr. Hargrave revealed that the amount owed by the Ghanaian government totals $3.6 million, warning that the delay in payment could disrupt the students' education. Dr. Hargrave suggested that political changes in Ghana government following December 2024 general elections might have affected budgetary allocations for foreign scholarships. I think there was a regime change in Ghana that affected the budget. But we're hopeful that it gets corrected because we love to keep those students on campus, he added. Interesting. Nigeria's GDP in 23, 363 billion. Let's see what Somalia's GDP is looking like. Wow, 10.97 billion. So it looks like all this foreign aid is helping to prop up these places. I'm not just looking up something real quick. Somalia only has 18 million people, roughly. 18 million people. And they receive like nearly $4 billion. Interesting. I know I said I wasn't gonna do too much, but I'm gonna check out one more country. Let's see. We already know Egypt got papered up. I'm not gonna do Israel. Um, but Nigeria does a lot of popping off, but they for people that's getting a lot of money. I know who. We'll go to Kenya. Alright, I'm curious. Let me go to 2008 real quick. Alright, so Kenya got 400 million in 2008. Alright, I'm just gonna fast forward 2016. You know, that's Obama's last year. Alright, and Kenya got 890 in 2016. And halfway like 2012. So let's see what Kenya received from the United States in 2012. 797. Man, did he crank it out like that? All right, let's go to 2009. 606. So it doubled. All right, I thought it doubled, but but definitely by 2012 it definitely doubled. All right. All right, let's see what Trump did. We'll go to 2018. That's half of his term. Well, they were still up. They still up. Darn near 1 billion. All right. All right, we just gonna do it like this. So, Kenya, 703 billion. 703 million for the year 2020. Yeah, I'm a wrap it up, people. I appreciate y'all hanging with me. If you're hanging with me, $630 million in 2021. $780 million in 2022. $886 million, $890 million in 2023. And what we got going on, $824 million in 2024. And let's see, we're in 2025, and we're gonna see what they got. Okay, $470 million in 2025. Yeah. So that's roughly $5 million. So between Ghana, Nigeria, Somalia, and Kenya, nearly $18 billion have been given out to these countries within 4 years. But we have a government telling foundational Black Americans that we can't find nowhere to find this money or where this money is going. But we're seeing that these countries are being propped up with funding from the United States government via foreign assistance. So I like to get some of y'all feedback. Leave a comment, like, share. All right, y'all. Have a good night.